Hello, today I'm going to talk about some true classic sci-fi games. It's the StarForce Trilogy from SPI from 1977. Comes in a couple different ways. You can get the games individually. Well, there's StarForce, Outreach, and StarSoldier. The three are grouped together because they are part of the same science fiction universe. They can get them individually in what you call like a flat pack version, or this box that contains all three of them. And I just got this box, that's why I'm doing this one today. And I've previously done detailed reviews of each StarForce, StarSoldier, and Outreach. So I'll put the link where if you wanna check out detailed discussion of play and rules, etc. So today I'm going to talk about how they tie together, and then show an example of play for each. This is the box I got today. It's obviously kind of beat up, but I'm happy to get it at a somewhat reasonable price. They're pretty expensive out there. It's a big bookshelf box. The cover is images of each of the games, and it's presented very well. It's interesting, the color scheme, the kind of lime green and orange, and the fonts work really well. It definitely gives the sci-fi theme. So I'm happy with the box, even though it's a bit beaten up, as I say. Here's a summary, which is nice. So it's good when they have a quick summary of the contents, and particularly this one, since there's 3 different games. StarSoldier is tactical level simulation of man-to-man combat in the 25th century. StarForce is in the same time frame. Interstellar warfare, as races seek to shift forces to attack enemy home systems. Outreach is a game of exploration and conflict on a galactic scale, in which races seek to expand their civilizations. It's got individual maps and counters, etc. Got 500 counters. The premise is it was discovered that a few people in, like billions would have this clairvoyant and telekinetic capability, and they could harness that to jump or shift star forces through space, and that's how they move. And coincidentally, the only people that could do that were women. StarForce and StarSoldier, they can be linked together in some scenarios. So StarForce are the ships, and StarSoldiers are highly capable individual soldiers with a lot of weapon capabilities that do kind of one-to-one combat through space. And then Outreach is groups, StarForce ships that travel to the galaxy over generations. And what's neat about this game is that in this universe, there's a lot of different scenarios for each of these games, and the scenarios, as you follow through them, it kind of guides you through the history and the background of the universe, so that's a fun part of this. StarForce is star shift, plot phase, shift execution, combat execution, star neutralization, recovery phase. StarSoldier, standard game. So you do plot phase, command communication segment, plot segment, execution phase, command fire, command launch, independent fire, independent launch, movement, projectile, resolution, recovery. Then you progress. Outreach, shift order, determination, shift phase, exploration phase, galactic interrelation phase, fate phase, resource allocation phase. Trilogy is created by Redmond Simonson for science fiction background, graphics, game design of StarForce. Red B. Hardy, game design of Outreach. Thomas Wozik, game design of StarSoldier. John M. Young, development of StarForce. Brad E. Hessel, development of Outreach and StarSoldier. As far as the content's done, descriptive insert, full sets of rules for each of the 3 games. All sorts of advertisements came with it. It's always fun to kind of look through those. Pad for simultaneous movement plotting for StarForce. For StarSoldier, there's a task point record tracks. Got a couple of those. Outreach, various tables. Got 3 of those. Then a map for StarForce, Outreach, and StarSoldier. And then it comes with trays. Mine didn't have a tray, so I used GMT trays, which are similar but not identical to the SPI trays. A couple SPI dice. And I believe it's supposed to come with a couple trays, but so I have a couple GMT in there. They fit perfect. So now I'll go and show examples of play of each of them. So I'm going to be doing this scenario 5, 2451 AD La Chal Da Contact. Ever since first venturing out of the solar system, humans awaited first contact. Finally, in 2451, a small fleet of La Chal Da from Sigma Draconis has stumbled across the nearest human colony, Eta Cassiopeia, defended only by its own stargate. They attempt to probe and or capture with access to their own stargate, It 61 Cygni, by breakoff. Or as a battle deployment, human player has a stargate and 2 star forces of Sol. At 1821, Alpha Centauri has 1 stargate and 1 star force. 3015 Tau Ceti, 1 stargate, 1 star force. 2713 Epsilon Erdani, 1 star fleet, 1 star force. 2009 A2 Erdani, just a stargate. 2523 Epsilon Indy, stargate, star force. 2018 Eta Cassiopeia, just a stargate. 2427 Delta Pavonis, just a stargate. Then the La Chal Da player, 2326 Sigma Draconis, stargate, 2 star forces. 2626 61 Cygni, just a stargate. 3223 HR 8832, star force and stargate. And starting at 3018, 2 star forces. Victory conditions. Human player must permanently neutralize all enemy stargates. La Chal Da player must permanently neutralize the Sol stargate or any other 2 human stargates. Special rules. The game begins with tactical display deployment of 2 La Chal Da star forces and deployment of the defending Eta Cassiopeia stargate. Play proceeds on tactical display before any stellar display plotting. Recommended format. It's definitely most enjoyable. It's a full advanced game with full optional rules. So this scenario starts out with doing the tactical combat at Eta Cassiopeia, where the alien units have come in seeing the human Stargate. And so I shifted that to the tactical display here. And I'm assuming they're just shifting in this turn, since this is where it starts out. So the units coming in have to come in the 500 series hexes, kind of the perimeter. And since they're shifting in together, they have to be within 1 hex. And I'm having them come in at +5 mini light Zulu. They can go from +5 to -5, so they're coming in high there. And so that's where they're at. And I'm going to keep track of the tactical stuff on one of these sim move sheets, separate from the strategic stellar display plotting. So the Stargate's at 000. The star is right below that at a -1. So that's the setup on the tactical display. So I'll show the tactical display battle here. So first of all, pretty much all the information you need for the tactical efforts are right here, which is really handy. So where we're at right now is the aliens D&E have come in, and there's a human Stargate. So when they first come in, the total distance, I brought them at +5, so they're at 5 away from the Stargate. And then we need the true distance, which if you look at 5, they're at 7 out. And cast, which is the fight mechanism, the battle mechanism, can only go 5. So they're outside that right now, so I have to move in a little bit. But so they're in stellar mode right now. They have a teleview value of 32, which is like, action points. So you do your plotting, and then you do 2 execution phases. So first of all, they're going to change their mode to battle mode, and that requires 32 points. So they've shifted to battle mode, and now since they're in battle mode, they have that total of 64. So they'll use 32 of their points to move. They can move a total of 2 in true points, 2 distance. Which, if you look at here, that if you move 1 and 2 in Z, for instance, that would be a total of 2, or anything less than that. So D is going to move up 1 hex closer, and then move down 1 Z. So they move down to from +5 to +4, and then E is going to move in 1 also, and then they'll also drop 1. So they both come in. And now the next phase, do the plotting, and as far as where they're at now, so D is at +4 and 4, so 4 and 4. He's still 6 out, and E is also 6 out. So they're still out of range, so they'll move in a little bit. And this turn now, so they're going to move, and then they're going to, and so it's hidden, so 2 players will have each a sheet here, but for purposes here, I also put the Stargate on here since I'm playing this myself. So in the 2 phases, the aliens will move in, and then the next one they'll do a cast. So their plan is D will move in a little bit to be on the edge, and then E will move in more. So D will move up to, or actually he'll stay at 431, but he'll drop 1 more in Z, so he'll be at 431 +3, so that'd be 4 and 3. So he's right at 5, so he's in distance. E then they're going to move in a little bit, so they'll move in here, and orientation is important, so I'll get their orientations here. And they're going to go down 2, so that's 1 and 2. The total distance would be 2 then, if you look at the chart. So they can do that. So they're within 4 because they're at 3, 2. So they're at 4. So they're a little bit closer in. And then the next one will be a cast, and they have 32 remaining, so they'll do a cast. And you can do casts in levels 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. They're going to do a 32. And they can also do an anti-cast too, which is a defensive, but they're not going to do that. They're going to be offensive. So they'll do a cast of 32, and you have to say the direction. So it goes clock 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. So they'll be casting it in 11, so going up this way. Simultaneously though, the Stargate, they're going to do offensive and defensive, so they're going to, because they expect them coming in there, so they're going to do a 32 cast, and then they're going to do also a 32 anti-cast, because they get 64 each execution phase. And they'll do that in both phases. And their direction will be 5, so they'll be coming down here. Then you can look at these cones to see the effect. So first of all, when they come in, when they settle in there, in the first execution phase, they come in the range of the Stargate. So the Stargate gets to fire, and then the second execution phase they can fire, and then the Stargate again fires. So they don't fire the first one. The Stargate though is at 4 and 5. So you look here, he's casting 32. So at the 4, it's a 2. At the 5, it's a 1. And they don't do any anti-cast. If they do, you would subtract that value. So let's do the 5 first. The one that's at 5 distance away, which has a cast strength of 1. So you go to this column, roll dice. 4, no effect. So if he would have got a 7, they would have been disrupted and had their tell viewpoints reduced by half. And now he'll do the 1, and then it's 1 cast, but it captures both of these in there. So at the distance of 4, which is E, he'll do a cast. 2. Again, no effect, so they were lucky there. Didn't take any damage that time. So now they come in, and so they have an each swing cast of 32, and they do the additive effect on the Stargate. So 32 at a distance of 5 is 1, 32 at a distance of 4 is 2, so they have a total 3 on here. But he's got an anti-cast of 32, so whenever there's a negative value, there's no effect, so they do not damage him at all. So now the Stargate is going to cast again then. So again, they're still at a distance of 4 and 5, and he's casting in that distance there, direction there. So first of all, on the 1, is 0, no effect. The one that's 4 away, which would be the 2 column, and again they don't have any anti-cast, is a 9. So that's not good news for him. So +2 means he's randomized, which basically means he's removed the tactical display, and then when we go at the completion of this tactical, he'll do stellar shifting, some randomized stellar shifting, and I'll show that. And then this will continue until it's resolved that only one of the players is there. So after that tactical combat, moving back to the stellar display now. So the result was that the 2 attacking alien forces were both randomized, and the Stargate was able to defend itself. So we'll put we'll take off the text situation marker, put the Stargate back where it goes, and then we have to figure out. So in the advanced game, instead of just removing randomized units from the board, you figure out where randomly they go on the board. So to do that, first for D, we draw three chits. So the first one, if you get either a destroyed or break off, that'll go in effect. So destroyed up here would mean obviously it's destroyed. Break off means it stays in its place, but it's not, functioning. So we don't get that. We get 2. We get a 0 and an 8, so we'll indicate that position. Draw another 5. Minus 17. That's a Z. And then for E, 26. 11. Plus 2. So that's where they'll go. And they'll both be neutralized. So I'll put those on the board. Here's deneutralized. E neutralized. That's where they're at. And finally I want to mention that, so I think the map works out really well. So it represents a sphere, but you're basically looking down on the sphere. And the items that are blue are positive, meaning they're coming up, and the ones that are purple are below the plane, and it shows the levels. So I think that works out pretty well. Then we'll get into some more playing the stellar display. So a few turns into it after the initial tactical battle. So we'll show where we're at here. So the humans have been, they'll be defending some of their worlds. Sol, of course. Defending this Stargate, this one. A few are left undefended in these locations. And they'll be moving with their forces A and C to get to Sigma Draconis. So A and C both did gate shifts, which gives you, that's when you have a StarForce on a Stargate, and they did, so we got 10 from that. So they both had to change their altitude because they were at 0 and minus 4, and Sigma Draconis is at plus 7, so I did change that some. And then obviously had the transversity area. So they've been able to get here, and after a gate shift and a shift, so A is at 26, 27 plus 7, so a regular gate shift gets you can go 5, so it's within his range. C is here, so 3 out, and his altitude is plus 5, so he's 2 off, so that's within his range as well. So they'll be attacking that next. The others are defending. The La Sholda, so they have a few defending theirs as well. They have A has stayed where it is. B did a gate shift because he had to reduce his altitude from 17 to 7. He's able to do that, and then he did a shift to get over there, so he's on location there to defend that. C is just a little bit of an altitude change, just from 17 to 15, and it was like within 6 or so. So within his 10 he was able to get there, and now he's just kind of waiting to maybe attack. So he's within striking distance at the right altitude, or Z coordinate. D was quite a bit off the board. He was, over here, because he was randomized. And so he's been shifting to get in, taking 5 at a time. This time he's going to do an overshift and try to, because he's at minus 12, he wants to, because this location's at minus 4. So he wants to get closer to being within range there and try to get down to minus 7 and get a little bit closer in. E has been able to shift, and now they're kind of in location here, and you know, they had to reduce their Z height a little bit, but now they're right in striking range. So then we'll go ahead and move, see what happens. So of course, A and C will move here. That's the human. Everything was in their 5 range, so they didn't have to do an overshift. So the La Shilda C, I mean, it's risky because, you know, they may be overmatched against the Stargate, but they're just going to see if they can maybe spread out the forces, and maybe they'll withdraw. We'll see. And then E, they're in striking range, but they're not going to go yet because there's a StarForce there, not willing to take that on. D, so they're going to do their overshift. They're going to attempt to go to 1720 and then reduce their height to -7. For that, we consult the overshift table. So D's going to do an overshift, and their safe max is 5. They're going 9, so that gives them in category D. And now they'll roll the dice, see what happens. 7. Category D. They're randomized, which isn't good. Then we go through the process to figure out, you know, where they will go that I showed previously. If they had gotten a 2 or less, then they would have been safe. If they would have got a 4 or 3, then they would have been reflected off in a mirror position. So I showed tactical combat before. Now I'll show the strategic combat results. So now we have a situation here by Sigma Draconis where we have 2 star forces entering, and then in a defending hex there's a Stargate and a Star Force. So what you do is there's a strength points, and then you have to allocate that to strength and defense and look at the difference. So that when the Star Forces first come in, the human forces, their Star Forces have a strength value of 2 each, so that gives them 4. And the first time they come in, the Stargate can't attack them, but the existing force can. And the existing force that's there has a strength of 3. So on this round, the humans have decided to go, so they have a total of 4. They decided to go with the attack of 3 and defense of 1. And the La Shilda went with the attack of 2 and defense of 1. And then they both make a roll, so the humans will go. First of all, the differential then is, it'll be the 3 minus 1 for the humans, which is 2, of course. Consult that +2 table. 2. So the La Shilda lose 1 force. This will apply after the combat. And then the La Shilda will go, and they have a attack of 2 minus the defense of 1, so they're in the +1 table. They get a 2, and that's insufficient. So on the next turn now, what's remaining is that one of the La Shilda forces has been eliminated, so there's 2 human forces against a Stargate. So on the turn after the initial one, the human forces are at a full of 3 strength each, so give them a total of 6. And they've decided to allocate 4 for attack and 2 for defense. The Stargate has a strength of 5, and they've decided to allocate 3 for attack and 2 for defense. So first, for the human, it'd be 4 minus 2, which would be the +2. 1. So nothing happens for them. The La Shilda have a 3 minus 2, so on the +1 table, they get a 4. So one of the human forces is eliminated. And now on the next turn, so the humans are at 3, they'll go 2, 1, and the soldier are at 5, they'll go 3, 2 again. So the humans, 2 minus 2, so they're in the 0 column. 6. So a 1 on a star is equivalent to 2 star forces, and a partial effect doesn't have any effect, so they're fine. And now they'll go, so they're at 3 minus 1, so at the plus 2 table. 7. 2. So they've eliminated the human star forces. That's the conclusion of that battle. So I'll be doing the scenario, La Soldier Contact 2451. Here's the specifics. It is a patrol situation, so first of all, look at the general patrol rules. So for the patrol situation, basically the base on the planet, they are electronically hidden, so the invading force has to do a patrol to find them. So that's what this is all about. So there's a alpha force that's basically the probing party that's coming in to try to find where the base is. And then there's the Bravo force, which is the kind of defending forces on the world. So first of all, figure out which side the Bravo force is going to enter on. And in this case, the Bravo force is going to enter on the west side. You can do that randomly. And then the Alpha or probing force is going to come on the east side. So you determine which will control Alpha, which will control Bravo. Game proceeds an indeterminate number of game turns until the Alpha player has no live troops on the map. A victory is determined. At the end of the game, the player with the most points is the winner. Points are as follows. Alpha receives 2 for every task point loss recorded on the Bravo preservation level track. Alpha receives 10 points for every star soldier and or android exited off the opposite side of the map from the one entered. Bravo receives 3 points for every task point loss recorded on the Alpha preservation level track. The greater the margin of difference in points between players, the greater the margin of victory. Alpha forces may enter the map in any mode except for support platforms. And a stage they enter the map may be plotted to expend task points on movement and CM only. Some scenarios, one or both players may receive reinforcements. So then going to the specifics of the scenario, you can choose either Alpha or Bravo for the human or the La Soldier. In this case, I chose the humans to be the Bravo force and the La Soldier to be the Alpha probing force. So for that case, the Bravo force has 1 FT and 1 HV with a preservation level 32, plus 2 homing missiles deployed as mines. La Soldier, the Alpha, has 1 squad with a preservation level of 50. And then you go back here to look at the unit organization chart to see what that means. So for the human, has 1 fire team, FT, which means 3 regular soldiers, 1 heavy, and 1 team leader. Then it also has a heavy weapons section, which has 2 heavy weapons. Then the La Soldier has 1 squad, which has 2 regular soldiers, 2 heavy, 2 team leaders, and a squad leader. So I have those set up. I have the heavy team coming in here, and this is the fire team, and they're coming in ground mode. And then off the side here, here's the La Soldier with their squad, and they're coming in Nap of Earth airborne mode. For the TPAs of the different levels, for the standard game, humans have a TPA of 9, which I've indicated here for each 7 units. La Soldier have a TPA of 12, which I've indicated here for each 7 of their units, and then I've also indicated the preservation levels. Then additionally, in this scenario, there's 6 civilian counters deployed prior to the game. And the human player, the PHS, HH, may utilize homing, only the PHH may utilize homing missiles. The civilians are in the urban areas in these locations. And then designated where the homing missiles are, since they're hidden. And I'll play against myself, but you don't show them until they're found or they're in range. So the homing missiles will be in 12, 27 here, and in 23 right here. Then also need to designate the leaders. There are regular soldiers that are designated as leaders, and I've designated the 101 for the human to be the squad leader, and 102 to be the team leader, and for the La Shelda, the squad leader is 101, and the team leaders are 102 and 103. I'll go through a little bit of play here to hopefully give you a sense of it. Plot of the movement. So there's two stages, A and B, for each of the human units. You have this stage, A and B, and then similarly for the La Shelda stage A and B. So basically what I'm doing is getting in position in stage A here. So the humans start off in ground. And then they went up to nap of air, came in, and now they're going to be moving in a little bit more. And in this stage they'll be moving up a bit and then dropping down to ground mode and then putting some CM on there. The La Shelda will be coming in so they've been coming in nap of air mode, coming the side here, and now they'll be coming in. A couple will drop down to ground mode after they move in, and then one will stay up in nap of air. And as far as command control, I'm keeping the groups with leaders right now because I allowed some distance between them to still have command control, but for right now I'm just keeping them groups with a leader so they have command control. And then I'll spread out a little bit later and still make sure they stay within the distance bounds for effective command and control. Second, in phase B of that, they'll be moving a little bit, doing some firing. And then in line with this too, so there's these homing missiles that are mines. They're hidden, and when they get in close, the La Shelda will soon be in range of these, and then they'll activate. So first of all, I'll just do the humans here. So this group will move up a bit here. It's half a point per motion in nap of air. So they'll spend 3 movement points to get there. And then they'll drop to ground level, and I've indicated that by now having this at the ground level sign. And they have 1 CM. And in this grouping, we'll spend 4 movement points, and then they'll also drop down to ground in 1 CM. As far as the La Shelda coming in then, so first you need to calculate when the homing missiles are going to be activated, when they're in the target attenuation range. So to do that, there's a range attenuation factor. You have to factor in the CM of these units, the movement of the subsequent turn, and then also the terrain effects. So from that, and also you have to look at line of sight consideration as well, since there's a mountain here. So when they're coming in here, this grouping, so they have a CM of 1, they'll be moving 3 in this next coming movement, and their terrain appears 2. And they're basically the range divided by 10 is your attenuation. And if that is less than 10, the homing missile will be activated. And right now, with that factor, he's below the 10, so it's going to go off like right away. Now this one has the line of sight is it's got the mountain here, so that affects that. But as soon as that gets in the line of sight, then that'll go off. And the homing missiles are allowed a movement factor of 6, and they're a nap of Earth, so they go 12 total. So he's going up to 2331. So we alternate. And you also do this to indicate the targets acquired. I'll just put that on here. So this one will be acquired when he gets across there. So it's going to go off there. And that indicates that it's an active missile. He's not quite acquired yet, but that'll come into play when he gets in position. He's going to 1533, so. And he's acquired it now because he's in field of view there. And he still has 6 points, so. And he's active. So there'll be a detonation that happens here and here. And then we'll move the other unit as well. He's going to 2933, and he's staying in nap of air mode. And then he'll have 3 CM active, the other 2 have 1 CM active. As far as then resolving the damage from the detonation, first of all, the attack strength of a missile is 30, and then to get the combat odds, you divide that 30 by the terrain value of the hex, and it affects hexes within 2 terrain points around it. So the terrain value of broken is 2, so it would go out 1 hex. Here the terrain value is 3 and 6, so, and it's 1 here, so you'd go out in this direction 2 hexes. So first of all, so 30 divided by 2 is 15. And then we do that individually for each of the 3 units that are on that hex. And we refer to the launched weapons combat results table here. So we're looking at 15, so in this column. 11. So no effect on the first one. 7. Second one loses 3 task points. So you then decrease the maximum amount. So his max will be 9 now. Then the third one, 8, which is 2. So that was pretty significant damage. Then we'll do the next one. So it's 30, since the terrain is 1, it's 30 divided by 1, which is 30. And we have 2 units there. 7. So we get 20, so 9, which is obviously pretty critical. Goes on here, although we're not going to take away the tasks he's already done. So. And then the next one, 4, 12, so he's totally destroyed. So I'll go through and I'll give it one example of each kind, some of the different ways of battle here. So right now, after the initial plotting and figuring out what's in command range stuff, and everything's kind of close in by leaders, so we're good there. Now it's the execution phase and the command fire segment. So there's several, it's like 4 or 5 different direct fires going back and forth. I'll show one for example. So first of all, heavy 122 here is firing at standard soldier 102. You calculate attack strength and defense strength. Attack strength is the firing soldier's efficiency rating multiplied the number of task points expended. He's doing 3 task points to fire. His efficiency rating is 2, and then since he's a heavy, he gets another multiplier of 2 on top of that. So 3 times 2 times 2 is 12. So that's his attack strength. And then defense strength of the opposing unit is the range attenuation plus target CM plus movement effect plus terrain value. Range attenuation, you take the distance and you divide it by 10. So in this case, there's a distance of 14. So divided by 10, we'll round that to 1. So that's that factor. Countermeasure is the efficiency rating times the amount of points expended. And for La Shelda, their efficiency rating is 2. And he's expending, or 1 task point on that. So he's got 2 for that. And then you look at the movement effect, and that's how far he's going to be moving in the next subsequent turn. And that's 3. And finally the terrain effect. So he's in the clear, so it's effective 1. So the result is 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 1 is 7. So his defense strength is 7. So we go to this chart, the standard game combat results chart. The differential then is the attack of 12 minus the defense of 7. So plus 5. Make a roll. 6. So that's the number of task points that are lost by a defending soldier. So he loses 7. And then we reduce his allowance by that amount. Turns out in his case, by losing 7, he's now lost more than his total amount, so he's killed and removed from the board. And then the rest of the direct fire play out, and now I'll move to the next segment. So the direct fires all happened, and now we're doing the launch sequence in the execution phase. So for an example, the human's S4 is launching a guided positron bomb over at this grouping. There's a chance that they'll scatter, and to scatter, you look at the formula is the efficiency rating times the task points allocated, that quantity minus the range effects ratings plus the target CM, where CM includes the efficiencies of all the items in there. So their efficiency rating is 2. They allocated 3 task points to do that, so that gives them a 6 for the positive quantity. And then the range efficiency, you basically take the distance and divide it by 5. So it's 14 hexes divided by 5, so 3 for that. And then they have a 2 efficiency rating on the CM side here, but use the different elements in there, and there's 3 items, and one has 2 CM, one is 1, so a total of 4. So that's you end up with that being efficiency of 2 times quantity of 4, 8. And you take that total of 6 minus the quantity of the 3 range effect and the command efficiency, and then you end up getting a minus 5. And then to see if it scatters, then you go to the scatter table. And now we're in the column of minus 5. We'll see what happens. 4. S2. The GBB will scatter. The number indicates how many hexes it will scatter. So it scatters 2, and then we roll for direction. 2 lands right here, and that'll form a crater. To determine the damage, then we go out. So you can go out 2 terrain effects, and ground is 2 terrain effects, so it can only go as far as this hex. It goes a couple out here, but only 1 in here, so it can't reach that, so no damage is done. So the scenario I'm going to do is a solitaire scenario. It's a PSL outleap. So in SPI's first science fiction game, StarForce, the history of humanity was traced up through first contact with spacefaring non-human telesthetics and subsequent formation of the Pan-Oceanic League, which include 2 such extraterrestrial races. An area some 40 light years in diameter, contained completely within Hex 1316, the Outreach map, comprised the map for that game. Each Hex in Outreach is some 1200 light years in diameter. Therefore, the scenario picks up a distant and hugely expanded PSL descendant civilization, occupying an area some 10,000 times its original size. So it's from the initial StarForce, it's basically been expanding. And it is still dynamic and growing. So the forces that start set up these 3 stargates at these locations, Sol, and then the other locations. And then it tells you the stargate values on those. And for instance, on here I show that these are the stargate numbers and these are their values. And then the fleets, there's one Explorer, one regular in 1316. And a regular on 1216. The initial available resource points are 5. Civilization is level 1. Victory conditions. The player wins if he manages to raise civilization of the PSL to 2 at the end of the game. It's a game like this, 25 turns. If the player gains control of the X Wisdom chit, it signifies the discovery of the fact that the nuclear core has exploded, an explosion is spreading outwards in a gargantuan chain reaction at the speed of light. The game is automatically lost, and the player has about 40 million years to entirely evacuate the galaxy, give or take a few hours. So then the way I've shown that on this sheet is, so the fleet 1 and 2, 1 is 1 regular, 1 explorer, 2 is 1 regular, and then like I said, here's the stargate values, and you have initial balance that you'll add to your star points. And then as far as set up the map then, these are the stargates in the defined locations, Sol, and then the other 2. And then there's 2 fleets. One is in Sol. And the other is on 1216. So that's what setup looks like. And then the wisdom chits done are in the galactic core, and they're randomly selected from the 10. So one of those might be the X, or it may not be. So it's set up, and then we'll play. So in the beginning of turn 17 here, thought I'd show the progress, and then I'll go through an example game turn. So I've been tracking, the progress on the sheet here. Again, it's a custom sheet, but you can do any way to track it if you want. Basically, these are the different fleet compositions. For instance, fleet 1 has 2 regular. Fleet 10 has 2 explorers, so they're moving around. These are the different stargates. Some have been fully developed and some haven't. For instance, 31. It's not fully. It just has a point of 0 at this point. It needs to be developed. Others have been fully developed. Some are partially developed. Like 38, for instance, is partially developed. And then the fleets I have, this one's going to the galactic core because I want to get a wisdom chit to have a chance of increasing my civilization level. I need to get that wisdom chit and bring it back to a stargate. These are going out and exploring. This one he'll go through this dust cloud here, and then he'll be able to see some beacon stars, which helps movement. This one's going to work towards developing this one, and the star Stargate's going to be developing ship's course. This one discovered this autonomous force, and this force is hostile, so this force will start coming against me here, so it's interesting. And these are the various resource shit, so since these have a value of 0, again, it's the resource max of spiral axis, fringe, and then inner spiral space, so it's 0 for these, so it doesn't make sense to develop these. So I'll get going into a turn then, and I'll zoom in on this. So the sequence of a turn is if you have multiple players, you determine shift order. I'm just doing a solitaire, so you do your shift, you do your exploration, you do your interrelation, which can involve combat, your fate, and then you do your resource. So I'll do movement in order of the different forces I have. So Fleet 201 here will move. He's moving out to explore here. Move up there. And since my technology level is 1, there's not a risk of just moving 1 hex, but if I move multiple, there's a chance of scatter. So Fleet 2 here. So he's going to be moving through here. He'll just move 1 also, and then since he's coming to an area where there's previously blocked sight to a beacon star, he can see new beacon stars now. Okay, so you do this and you roll dice and add 2 to it, so 3. You discovered 3 beacon stars. So as far as their placement, so for solitaire, the player chooses a hex row, rolls the die twice for each hex. For each hex that I roll a 9, I place it there. So these are the 3 beacon stars that are placed, and then they will be useful when you shift to them. There's no chance of scatter if you go to them, since they're like a navigation aid. So then 203 will continue moving out here. 204 will move out here and explore. 205 will stay here to develop. 206 will move here to develop at Stargate. 207 will move back. 208 will move more rapidly to the galactic core. So there's a 3 refer to the scatter table, and they're going to try to go 3 hexes. So roll. And they're okay, there's no scatter. If they were to scatter, then they would be moving to 1 or 2, etc. adjacent hexes in a random direction, and they would lose some fleet. So they're able to move 3. .209 will stay there to develop, and then 210 will stay there to turn that into a Stargate. So that's movement. And then exploration. Exploring, nothing. So they need either 1 or 2 depending on how many they have. They didn't find anything. Didn't find anything. Getting unlucky, didn't find anything. Everything 6s, didn't find anything. So there was no discoveries. If there had been a discovery, which would be convenient for demonstration, you would, for instance, if some of these had a score So for instance, if there's 2 regular, the die roll would be 2. If you have 2 explorers and a regular, it would be 4 plus 1, so 5, and you'd shift to this. And then you roll die roll, you would find an exploration. And if they were, you would randomly draw a resource chit and then put it under there to indicate the capability that they can develop there. So that's exploration. And then interaction, I'm not going to be doing anything there, I'm just trying to get away from these. Then the fate roll. So you look at your system points, and there's currently 20. You total up the values of your Stargate, and then you consult. Here's the fate table. So obviously you go that 1, 6. Okay, looks like something's gonna happen. H. I believe that's an autonomous race. So here's the fate. H is an appearance of another autonomous force. Place 3 stargates and 7 star fleets on the game map. So if I hadn't done any exploring, then I would ignore that. But I did do exploring, and then I'll see which of these. So it's actually here where there's an autonomous force. So set them up according to the 1 through 6. And the resources they generate are in the back, and they don't change. And there's 7 fleets, and so you distribute them among forces, the Stargates. So that's interesting. And then resources. So this is where you do development, etc. So first of all, he's here, and 206 has 1 fleet, so they can move 231 up to a value. They can increase the value of that by 1. And you take away Starfleet, and you'll keep this here until it reaches its max. Okay, and then this one is turning that into a Stargate. So he has, you need 2 fleets to turn him into a Stargate. So he's got 2, and then he'll turn that into a Stargate. You'll indicate that, and you'll take him off the board. Okay. What's that? And then developing fleets. So then we calculate how much. This is the number of system points. If one of the die rolls is that from fate you lose basically Stargates, and that didn't happen here. So basically the maintenance is when you have multiple fleets beyond 1 that aren't explorers, you deduct that. So there's 2, there's 1 extra, so it's 1, 2, so there's 2 maintenance. So the total resources you have are 18 plus what was previous, so it's 33. And then I'm going to build some fleets. 206 and 205 I'll add explorers. I'm sorry, 209 and 205 Lot Explorers. So that takes 10. So I expended 10 points, and that gets me down to 23 remaining. So that's how that works. So that's the completion turn for me, but now the autonomous forces. First of all, these are hostile, and so what'll happen is you take the number of these according to the Stargate, you place them there, and then the rest you're going to have going towards the nearest Stargate, which is 4 of these. And each of these forces only has one regular Starfleet. They don't have different groupings of them. So this is Civilization 1, and they have to go 3. So they roll in the fate table 6. So, right, I'm sorry, they roll in the scatter table. So they roll 6, and actually they're okay. So. It looks like there's going to be combat there. You stay there. And we'll see if these are hostile or not. So we roll on the random interaction table. So they're also hostile. And then next turn they'll be moving towards. And then also on here there's an interesting a way of tracking the interactions. You keep track on the matrix. So since both these are hostile, you'll place markers saying their hostility. The autonomous forces have Stargates. They can develop system or ships themselves. So they have 3, 4. So each of these can develop a regular Starfleet with 1 remaining for next time. So that's a completed turn 17. So that's to look at the games of the StarForce Trilogy from SPI in 1877. True classic, unique sci-fi background, different play between each, and so you can get large-scale strategic, tactical, small-scale strategic, or man-to-man tactical. So it covers a lot of area. And they each have a lot of scenarios, which is all develops the history of that universe. Definitely recommend if you can get a copy, either of the boxed version of all 3 or the individual games. Thanks a lot.